Welcome to Adrift, episode 15, and I can say with confidence because I did look it up this time. This episode is going to be with Lissy Bear, otherwise known as Alyssa Indri, and she is a free-spirited traveler. She's going to tell us about her journey across the country. I'm super stoked to hear about it because this is actually my first time hearing about like a lot of what went down. So very stoked, very excited. Thank you everybody who's tuning in, and thank you to everybody who's going to listen later on, whether it be on IGTV or YouTube. So for a quick minute here, I'm going to do a little hashtag for a second. That was actually a really good intro. I need to practice that. That's right, Drift Live series, and I'm going to put her Instagram so you could check out some of her journey and also some of her poetry, because that is another thing that's popping off soon. So I'm very stoked for her. There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, like a lot. So check down here the comments. I'm going to pin that for you guys. I know my YouTube viewers and the IGT viewers aren't going to see it later, but for you guys, this is for you. Lissy Bear is here. Here we go. What? Magic. Boom. I know you did not just sip a cup.
Do you want one? I should make him one.
I would love it if like we had planned it and I was like, yeah, and this just hand came over and gave me this big. That would be perfect.
I think you should like have tea from now on and like invite your like, other person to have a cup of tea as well.
Lissy Bear with the ideas, man.
No, they're just exploding on my head lately.
Well, it's like insane, right? Because I mean, you did the trip, and then you also have a poetry competition that you're in. So we're going to let you talk about that a little later. And I mean, I can only imagine the other stuff. I mean, you were actually my first model ever, which is still like, what? Like,
it's
what?
So crazy. So I met you at the Stanhope House, right?
Yes.
And I remember it was really loud, and you were like, hey! I'm like, what's up? You're like, I'm doing this project, and it has some of the elements in it, and I feel like you would be water. And I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, I kind of am like water, like fluid. And you're like, yeah. Photo shoot? I'm like, sure. Like, but, like, looking back at that, it's so crazy because I feel like I was so uncomfortable doing that. But if you asked me that now, I would like embrace it with full force.
That's so wild because, yeah, like we had never actually like hung out. We've never spent time together. And you like, it's funny because that set the foundation for like just about every other random encounter I've had. I've been like, oh, what about this person? They seem cool. I'm going to ask them randomly. But like when we did it, it was so crazy because you were the first person I ever shot with a concept in mind, and you were the first person I randomly ever walked up to and was like, "Do you want to shoot? Because I have a camera and an idea."
I loved your idea because it was like you were gonna do photo shoots of one person, like water, one fire, one earth, one wind.
Yep. And you know what's crazy? That idea never fully came to fruition. One, because when I asked you, it was winter time. So I know it's one of those things where your ideas get ahead of you. It was like, oh my God, I want to do this. And I was like, how is she going to be water if all the water is frozen?
When you're both stoned. Oopsie. Well, cool idea. You could still do it at whatever point.
I do. Actually, it's crazy because there's somebody I have in mind for Earth now. So it will happen. It will definitely happen. I still actually am actively working to make that happen, but it's just the production value of how I really want it to look. Mm-hmm. It's just, I wasn't there. And now I am, about 4-ish years later.
Your pictures are amazing. Like, I was just scrolling through, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, seriously, they make you feel something, like, right in here.
Right.
They really do. The ones of Sydney, because, like, I know Sydney, and, like, she looks so, like, ethereal.
Yeah, she has that though. She has that quality, and it's crazy because I feel like now you guys both share that. This mug is amazing.
When you live in Florida.
I'm getting a mug, 100%. It's going down. Okay, so let's tap into this because we were going to talk about your journey. I definitely want to hear about that. Also, shout out everybody who's tuning in. Monkey, Erica, Alec, Martinez, what's up? Glam by Deanna Parna. She's the best person to come up to. Will make everyone and anyone comfortable. 100%. I was like a wee little photographer, just like, please be in my shoot. It's sort of an idea. And she was totally like, yeah, let's do it.
And I never did it before. I was like, yeah, I can model. I can do that.
Why not? She also said, Liz actually told me about that shoot. That's awesome. And Samir, Ayo right back, big homie. Yeah, so shout out everybody. So, Alyssa Sky, Alyssa Bear, Lissy Bear, Young Lissy Baby.
Young Lissy gave me my rap name, so.
True. Oh, and Chels, what's up, Chels? Wow, everybody's tuning in. This is great. Okay. You went across country and just went on this whole like crazy journey like that. Like, so where did you go? Like, how many states did you go? Did you plan any of it?
So I just want to say that it's funny because so many people are like, wow, like you went on that trip alone, but it's pretty easy to do. Like once you do it one time, you're like, okay, like I could do anything alone, especially within the country. Because you can always get home if you're in the U.S. You can always get home. So what I did is I went to Colorado, and I did a week there. And then I drove up through Wyoming, up to like Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone National Park. Then I went over, stayed in Idaho. Plot twist, that was my favorite part of the trip. And then went over all the way to like Washington and Oregon and like went to that coast.
That's nuts. And did you plan any of that or did you just like do it?
I planned the first half, and then when I got there, I planned the second. Which usually I would plan more of it, but for some reason I was like, let me just go with the flow. You know, I knew I was gonna be booking Airbnbs, and those are always easy to get.
Yeah.
And I was gonna be driving, so I was like, do I really want to like make myself be in one place like after driving all day? Maybe I want to stop at this like horse farm, or maybe I want to stop here in this town at these sand dunes. Like you just never know.
No, I absolutely love that because it's like there's a certain element to just kind of going out and also like testing to see what you're even capable of. You know what I mean? It's like you think about that. You think about like people's day-to-day lives, you know, like you purchase food that you didn't have to hunt. You live in a home that you didn't have to build. Like you drive a car that doesn't require food. I mean, it needs gas, but like it's not eating hay all day. You know, like there's so many things that we're so detached from. And it's like, here you are, you're just like, well, I have all the means to do something wild. Let's do it. Let's do it. You know?
It's so true, like how you just put that like big picture sort of perspective, because I think we all get so worried when we go on like vacation, right? Like we need to plan everything. But if you kind of start calling it travel instead of like vacations, maybe you do only book like the first 2 days and then you figure out the rest. You know what I mean? It's like I had to totally change my notion of what traveling was. You know, like starting to go to places for longer, that's really important. Like you want to dedicate 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You know, there are things that like make it more enjoyable rather than just like one solid planned week. So,
actually, how do you feel about that though? Like just kind of showing up to a place and soaking up the space versus going to a place and being like, I'm going to go here because they have great cheese and I'm going to go there because they have great wine. You know what I mean? Like, part of your story was that you did wind up in situations with locals. Like, for example, the Dune buggy story was like insane. That was the only story I know about because I had to ask about it.
that was in Idaho. And when I was like passing through Idaho, I was like, Idaho? It literally smelled like potatoes in the air. Like as I'm driving, I was like, okay, this is expected, you know? And so then I stayed at this Airbnb that was like, on a farm. And it was like a self-sustaining permaculture farm. And these people that I was staying with explained everything to me. And then they invited me for dinner. We're just laughing the whole time, having a great time. Then they go at the end of dinner. It's like 8 o'clock. They're like, have you heard about the sand dunes? I was like, no, I was just passing through. And they're like, oh yeah, they're like 15 minutes away if you want to go. I was like, down. It's sunset. I'm like racing against the sunset, like going to the dunes, see him in the distance, park, run up on the dunes. And I saw these like, I guess like the dune buggies in the distance. I was like, yo, I'm going to get a ride. I was like, I'm going to get a ride. Like, it's happening. I already have a ride. Some guy, Gary, 72 years old, whips up behind me. He's like, hey, you need a ride? He's like, I built 75 of these suckers. Like, you can hop in. Straps me in, like, triple strap. And we just, like, ride off into the sunset. I was like, Idaho, special place in my heart, you know? So if I was, like, maybe staying in a hotel, that wouldn't have happened. You know, if I had plans to get up very early the next day, maybe that wouldn't have happened. I don't know.
But it did. But it did. You just went for it. And also, side note, that should be everybody's version of a sugar daddy. A man and a woman in a dune buggy that's just like, strap in, let's go for a ride. You know, that is romance. Like, I don't care how old you are. Like, you have my heart at strap in, not strap on. You feel me?
I love that. He was great, honestly. Like, he said he did like so many races, so I felt so comfortable riding with him. The only thing was he would hit a jump and like all this sand would like go in my mouth because I was like loving my life. I was like, oh my god. But you know, Gary would have probably like given me the Heimlich if anything would have happened. So.
Shout out Gary, wherever you are, whatever sand dune you're riding right now. So in that case, then, so you're not really as much about planning unless it's like a hotel type of situation. Because we actually had a friend of mine here, Erica. She says you miss out when you plan everything. And Berno, I love Berno. He goes, I was thinking about potatoes when she said Idaho. Like, who is there? That's a very valid point.
Yes. No, I had no clue.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's not. I feel that the whole planning thing. I went to England for a friend's wedding. Or was it, did I go for the wedding? That was the first time. The second time, wow, I've been to England twice for weddings. All right. So yeah, it was actually Wales. I went to Wales for a wedding, and then I had this whole idea that after the wedding, I was going to go to Spain, and then I was going to go to France. And Spain didn't happen because I decided to go to a festival instead. So that plan went out the window, and the festival was everything.
Oh.
But then I went to France, and I planned to not plan anything. Like, I wanted zero idea of what I was going to do, where I was going to go. I went to this random town called Brest and, like, hung out in an Airbnb. Yeah, this woman, she didn't speak a lick of English at all. Like, it was basically, like, made-up sign language the whole time. But it was like, you felt it, man, you know? Like, you felt what it's like to really be there, and you really get this notion of how other people live, and it makes you realize, like, the way that you live when you don't travel is so small. It's so tiny, you know? Like, your mind is tiny, your thoughts are tiny, you don't think about things that you under any other circumstance you have to think about. It's really intense.
It's so funny that you say that, because I always say when you travel, you see your life from like an outside perspective. It's almost like you're looking at this like little like snow globe, and it gives you this like relief because you're able to like finally sort out a lot of things in your life that maybe you didn't even know were bothering you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, every trip that I go on, I always come back with this huge, it feels like a huge, just like life notion. Like, hey, bitch, did you know this? Because like, this is huge. Like, I remember last year I went to Australia.
Yeah, your friend just mentioned that. She was like, Alyssa's been to Australia alone too. What?
You know, okay. So I woke up like on day 3, and I remember I literally sat up and I was like, wow, I'm responsible for my own happiness, and thought about all the things I was doing in my life that were like, you know, holding me back, but I was doing it. And I just like had that. And I would have never had that if I woke up in my bed at home, because it takes you so much longer because you have all these like distractions, I feel like. So. Yeah,
no, 100%. That happened to me when I came back from Paris on that trip, because I'll tell you something that I did on that trip later. The other thing I wanted to say is I actually went and with an ex of mine, so I wasn't technically alone. We went to Assateague Island in Delaware. It's pretty sure it's Delaware. Basically, it's this island where you can camp on the beach. You have to hike for 6 miles up the beach, and then you can just like literally set up a tent and just do your thing. So we did that for like 3 days, and there wasn't really any food, so you had to bring your own stuff. There wasn't water because it was salty. Like you had to kind of like prepare to live for 3 days with kind of nothing to save you other than like another 3-hour hike back to like where civilization was. And what was crazy is when we got back, I couldn't look at everything the same way. Like I kept looking around and everything seemed strange. The way that people responded to things, the way that people like acted toward one another. It was like the strangest thing. Like people seemed so foreign and distant to me because like I had spent 3 days living on things that weren't luxurious. I didn't have cell phone access. I didn't have like any electronics. It was a beach. There was no amenities like whatsoever. It was just sand and water. And I'm looking around and I'm like, what the hell are we doing, man? Like people are running around trying to get to a job they don't care about. People are like running around like in relationships with a person they hate. Like it was just like the weirdest thing to me. And then the same thing happened when I came back from Paris. It was like that reminder of like, why would I do something that I don't value? And so here's the thing I was going to say before is on the very last day, I was sitting by the River Seine, which apparently I didn't know this at the time. I probably would not have done this, is like the equivalent of the Hudson River here. And so, so I'm like sitting by the river and I'm just like thinking, appreciating the whole vibe. And I'm looking at this kid next to me and he's like, hey dude, you want to go in the water? And I was like, yeah, why not? Screw it. Like, can I? Is that a thing? Like, I had to ask permission to go into something that was there and open and free. Like that already was weird. So I got in the water and I was like, oh, this is cool. So he's like, do you want to jump in the water? I was like, from where? And he like pointed at the bridge. And I was like, you want me to jump off a bridge into the water? He was like, if you want to. And I was like, it was one of those moments, when people say like, if somebody told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? I fucking did, man. I jumped off the bridge. Like I had my camera. It's crazy. I trusted him with all of my luggage, all of my cameras and lenses. And I like ran to the top of that bridge and just jumped off. And people looked over as I was just like backstroking, chilling. And people thought that I did it to like kill myself or something. And it was like, no, man, I needed to kill the old me, but the new me's here, dude, So I know, long story short, I feel you. I 100% feel you. I know exactly.
I love that story. I love it.
Yeah. I wish more people could feel that, could look around and really see the importance of every little thing that they do. I really do.
It's hard to do it in everyday life. That's why travel is important. Like you should be doing it at least twice a year. Like I think. Because it's like once a year is just not enough to break away. You're not going to be able to truly like let go. Like maybe you're still thinking about like a bill you have to pay at home or like something you have to take care of at home. Like you need to separate that. But also like I work at a school, so I have off in the summer. So I think it's easier for me to be like, yeah, take off 2 months, like just go. But like I know people can't do that, but maybe, like when people take a job, they could be like, hey, like I have at least 5 weeks out of the year that I need. And if you can't hire me for that, maybe I don't know how it works, but I just feel like I would make it a priority if I was in like the corporate world or something, especially because like therapy.
It is. Well, that's the thing that's weird about therapy. I know there's like, I promise everybody who's watching, this has everything to do with travel, but really it has more to do with like these side effects of traveling. Because no, really, like, because like that's the reason why you travel. You travel to get outside of yourself. I love the way that you said that. You have to remove yourself from your own equation. And there's really no way to do that unless you leave the whole equation. You have to leave the whole thing behind. That's why traveling with friends isn't really traveling. Like you have a safety net. You have that reminder of what your life is like. But when you travel and you meet people, it's like, oh, these are all new equations. These are all new relationships, all new ways of living. That's how you remove yourself. And that's how you're able to actually even almost force yourself to reflect upon your own experience in your own life.
This last trip was like really big. Like I realized something really big and it's like really personal, but I almost do want to share it.
Do you? Tell it, if you don't mind.
It's no problem. So, you know, Australia was last summer. I realized a lot of stuff. I was in like a toxic relationship. But this trip, I realized that my last 2 relationships were like with somebody who was narcissistic.
Mm.
And I was thinking. I'm like, why is this happening? Because I consider myself a good person. I feel like I always try to put in inner work, like try to do the right thing. I'm like inherently caring. And so I'm like, it's getting to me. This is like day 3 of my trip. I'm thinking about it. And so I call my mom. And I was like, Mom, I'm hiking, I'm doing all this stuff. And I just keep asking myself, why did I get into these 2 relationships? And she's like, oh, well, like your dad is narcissistic. And I was like, literally like wrench in my life sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. Now I'm on this trip and like I can like process this, you know? And it was amazing because I thought about all the patterns of my parents and every single thing that they did when I was growing up and how that influenced me and how that literally has created my way of thinking. And now it's like this push-pull because I'm always trying to get out of that. You know, and it's like, it's just so insane. I realized so much about my childhood and my relationships with people and just everything. And then I just came home and I'm just like, wow, it's so much easier to live life now. It's like everything is like flowing easier because it's like I got so many answers to questions I didn't even know that I had. So I like, you know, encourage people if they're going to go on a trip, yeah, go see like the mountains, whatever you're going for the like landscape, but also like start to ask yourself like hard questions about how you're feeling. Like what was your childhood like? Like, what are your friends like? You know, what are you feeling? What are you craving? Like, you know, so it's just a lot.
Yeah. No, thank you. Literally, thank you so much for saying that, because that's actually like also part of my journey. And for those of you who don't know, which is literally all of you, we were literally just talking before this IG Live and having conversations similar to this. And it's wild that you said that, because you said that you and I are both on a very similar spiritual journey, and we're both on a similar like spiritual sort of a level / trajectory, if you will. And it's so wild that you said that, because that has also been my experience. That sort of push and pull, that sort of, this is where I suppose certain elements of my life want me to be. This is where I want to head. This is what feels authentic. And it is that constant back and forth of like trying to find this sort of harmony, whether it be between the two, or how many relationships do we have, you know, just in general. We have our families, we have our friends, we have our like intimate relationships, we have our work relationships, we have people that we see on the street. Like actually, I'm not going to go super into that, but I had to very kindly tell a mechanic who did a terrible job on my car that he did a terrible job. He didn't respond very proudly, but I maintained my energy, because that's his response to stimuli. That's how he processes things. His action does not necessitate a reaction from my end. You know what I mean? And it's vice versa for all that. So that push and pull you're talking about, always a choice. And if you recognize it as such, and you have like the ability to see like what's happening, like you said, you're capable of making that decision and being active in the decision.
It's true. I mean, like inner work is such a process. So traveling, I feel like, is just part of that process. You know, it's not like traveling and then inner work is underneath that. It's like inner work should always be at the top, and then it's like, what are you going to do to like get better at it? Like, are you going to travel? Are you going to write? Are you going to do podcasts? Are you going to like paint? Are you going to dance? Like, what are you going to do? Because you have to like put effort towards that. And I think that's why I put travel at the forefront, because I'm like, okay, it's time to like realize some shit again. It's that time of year. Like, you know what I mean?
Reset. Yeah. Isn't it funny? Because no, people always say that it's like this, I want to escape. And I feel like that's such a carnal thought. It's like, I want to escape because you think that you're physically trying to escape from something, but that's not what you want to escape from. I think you really want to escape from whatever it is going on in your mind. You want to escape from the toxic relationship. You want to escape from like poor decisions you've made in your life that are weighing heavily, or You know, why is my dad this way? Why is my mom this way? Like, why does the world work in this way? And again, through travel, that's a fantastic way to be like, oh, my reality isn't the only reality. There's other ones, and I can have a piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
It's pretty crazy. And now that we're talking, I'm kind of like, if anybody was gonna like take something away from this video, it would be like, when you go somewhere, you know, make it a goal to like see the things, but also like feel the things, like feel everything you can, like make it like a spiritual journey as well, because it's always gonna provide you with like some insight in one way or another.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And even Deanna Para, you want to escape from the routine and see what else the world has to offer. Absolutely, 100%. You know, you're totally tuned in. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
So that is my best friend. Her name is Diana Viana in Espanol. And her and I went to Peru in March when the world basically got quarantined. We got stuck in Peru because they had closed the borders. So we basically were quarantined in Peru, and we had to get rescued by the U.S. Embassy. So she and I went through that together. So that was that trip. We didn't even get to go to Machu Picchu. We didn't get to do anything, but the learning that we did and like the love that we shared, and we realized that the only things that matter are like friends, family, music, food. Like that's all you need. And we went through that together, you know? So that was like a whole nother trip that we both have a little bit of PTSD, but like the learning I got out of that, priceless.
That's amazing. And that's another kind of point there as well. And also, Diana, don't worry about the language barrier. Si tú quieres hablar en español, yo te entiendo. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Lissy's like, I feel like you know Spanish. Do you?
Un poquito.
I know you do. I know you do. Oh, shoot. I was going to say, no, like, oh, shoot. I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Like, even if you do plan for something, there are still unplanned things that are going to happen. And I feel like that's another thing that that when you travel, when you go outside to other countries, you can plan for things, but I think people have these very poor experiences when they simply expect everything to go the way that they planned it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, let's say you go to the Dominican Republic and some crazy tropical storm hits out of nowhere. So for the whole week it's raining. And it's like, oh, we went to DR, but it rained the whole time. It's like, so what? Like, that's it? Like, you spent a whole week in another country and you were just
like the rain ruins your time? Like, what did you, like, tell me something good.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, what's up? Like, you know, did you dance? Like you were saying, dance. Like, did you dance in the rain? Did you, you know, did you go for like a drive? Did you see what like the tropical, well, I guess the tropical forces in there, but like, did you see what like any sort of the architecture or whatever looks like while it's raining? Like, you got a unique opportunity to be in another country in a unique situation. There's got to be something that could have been done that was valuable. And so, once again, plan if you want to. If you're that kind of person, feel free. But don't get too stuck on the idea of it needing to be ticky-tacky. Like, let that go.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I think that's a traditional way of planning vacations, because like my family never traveled. We went to Myrtle Beach, stayed at the same hotel every summer. Like, that was travel. You know what I mean? And it's like, I went back as an adult. I was like, was it this trashy when I was a kid? Like, I didn't, but you know, it's cool. I like Myrtle, but so yeah, like, I don't know. I forget what you were saying, because I just literally thought back to Myrtle Beach, like, wow, there's so much trash on the beach. I was like, so sad.
Well, let me ask you this, because you've been to so many different parts of this country. Do you feel like seeing these actual parts of the country changes your perception of the country?
So people are all the same. Like, we are literally made of the same things, like the same matter. You know, you think somebody in Idaho would be so different and weird or something, you know, or even on the other coast, but it's not. You know, it's amazing. And when you go international, so when you go out of the country, you realize that speaking English is such a privilege. And living in the U.S. is a privilege, and we should never take advantage of that. You know, whether or not you're happy with how things are right now in the future, being born in the US, especially if you're born near like a city, like I was born an hour out of New York City. Like, are you serious? Like, how did I get that lucky? You know? And so just never taking that for granted. That's another thing that like traveling does for you too. You're like, okay, I'm pretty lucky. I should probably stop complaining as much.
Actually, you know, I had that thought when I was in Paris, and I haven't thought about it for a while, so thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
No, because like I can go to other countries and assume that somebody somewhere does speak it. Like there's more of a likelihood that somebody's going to speak English in another country than them coming to this country and finding somebody that speaks their language. Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating. But so to your point about people all being the same, I feel like the only thing that changes is the politics. There's really all that changes. And it's not in the sense that politics in and of themselves is different. But like when I went to England, I was like for the first time, I was struck with this massive anxiety because I didn't see police anywhere. That like, it was the weirdest thing to like completely disorient me. But I didn't realize how much of a premium I put on police being around, like, and being used to it, you know? Like there was this fight that broke out at a bar while I was in England, and they just let you fight it out. Like, you know, like I remember I tapped this guy on the shoulder and I was like, so is anybody going to like call the cops or something? Like, you know, how's that work? And they were just like, no, they just fight and whoever wins walks away. And I was like, huh, who knew?
People like moving tables out of the way, like give them some space.
Right. You know, like the girl in the bikini is like round one.
Yeah.
Round one. You know, like I was so like thrown off by it because I was like, I was expecting like a riot or something to break out, but that's like the mentality that I think that we're in now is like that we're so used to there being police that for me at least when I didn't see them, I was like, this is weird, dude. Like. So people can police themselves. People are capable of being pretty much decent with the occasional bar, you know, fist fight. Every, you know, like it's cool. It's cool. Let people work out their own problems. You know what I mean? But anyway, not to get super political, but it was just one of those interesting, subtle differences that had a very huge impact on me and made me uncomfortable for like the first 2 days. And then I was like, this is actually great. Like I can be responsible for myself. I can take accountability for myself, and I don't have to worry about somebody calling the cops on me because I played music too loud or something. You know, something stupid. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Did you feel like there was anything like that on your travels?
Like what? Sorry.
Sorry. No, like those just kind of subtle differences, like social differences.
Oh my gosh, yes. So. Not so much in this country, but Australia was wild. Like they're much, to me, this is all my opinion. To me, they were like much more serious and a little like harsher and just different in like that way. So like in America, I feel like, especially as a woman, like I'm very much encouraged to be nice, be kind, like all this stuff. But there, it's just like straight to the point. Like they'll just look you in the face and tell you. And I kind of liked that. Because at first I thought it was just the family I was staying with that was like that. And then I started realizing it was like everybody. And it's very cool. But again, at the end of the day, even though there's those little cultural things, people are still like the same. You can still joke about all the same things. Like something I found is dirty jokes. It does not matter what language, what country. If there's a language barrier, no, it's fine. Dirty jokes are funny in every single language.
Yes. I miss that. I miss dirty jokes. I feel like I still try and tell them, and some people are just like, you know, it's 2020. Like that's. I'm just like, are we friends? Do we know each other?
They're the best. It's like a new level of like friendship. You know, if you know that somebody's gonna laugh with you at dirty jokes, like you feel comfortable saying anything.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100%. I love that. So yes, people are pretty much like the same just about wherever you go. Like ultimately, we all want the same things. We all want like a sense of love and belonging, a sense of purpose. You know, I think ultimately it's all the same thing. You know, I feel like especially in a place like Australia where just about anything could kill you, have that feel. There's a question.
I was cleaning the house that I was staying at, and I moved this like little shoe rack. There was a spider like literally this big. Like the body was like a solid quarter. And I called the mom that I was staying with, because they did a work away where you like work for a couple hours and you stay for free, which we can talk about if you want. And I called the mom, and she came over and she was like, oh, she's like, no, that's a small one. Kills it with her foot. Guts go everywhere, like all over the walls. Like, it was like she killed a small animal. I was like, how do I clean this up? Like, it's a murder scene.
Oh my God. So you did something that was kind of like, because England has something like that called Camp America. So you worked in another country and got to just like float around for a few days, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Like if anybody listens to this, so amazing. So it's this website, and it's called workaway.info instead of .com. And you can search for all these different jobs. So if you're a good handyman, I was a nanny 2 times. You can do work inside of a house, outside of a house. You can house sit. You could pet sit. You could do all these things. You could take care of the elderly. And you find a profile that fits with you, depending on where you want to go, what kind of people you want to stay with. And you tell them when you're available. You arrange the time. Usually they want you to stay about a month or longer. Mm-hmm. But you work for, on average, 4 to 5 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then you get to stay for free.
Ooh. Yep. I could do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you're going to go somewhere for like a month, it's the way to go.
And again, it kind of goes back to that whole thing where you really get a slice of what it's like to live. It's like you actually feel it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you're in their house. Like, you're in their house. Like, in Australia, they let me use their car. I was, like, driving on the left side of the road. Like, oh, sorry. Like, it was crazy.
That reminds me, I went to Llangollen in Wales. And it's basically Sussex County, New Jersey, but way more beautiful. And one of my friend's friends, who now we're all friends, she was like, I told her, because I drive a manual transmission and that's all they have there. I was like, I've always wanted to drive one of these cars, and I do know how to drive manual. She was like, well, get in the car, let's go. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, let's go. So I get in the car, and she brings me down the narrowest street. It was 2 lanes, but for all intents and purposes, it could have been 1. And I'm driving down this road, and she's like, you could go faster if you want to. And I was like, what? Like, I'm about to break your whole car, flip this over. It's like, this is a nightmare, honestly. Like, I was freaking out, dude. Like, it was crazy. Because they, like you said, they're so much more straightforward, but they're also more open. In almost every other country, it's like they will be completely themselves. There's no BS. I feel like in America, we get a lot of we speak in code.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
You notice that? It's like a lot of like little coded messages in the things that we say. Over there, it's like if you want to have sex with somebody, you pretty much just ask them, and like that's it. No, think about it. It's really weird. Like here is so weird. We have to like do this whole game, and it's all this bullshit. Like over there, it's like this weird thing. It's so bizarre. But any other country is pretty much just like ask, and you either shall receive or you shall not. And you can move on with your life.
They're like, do you want to blow me, mate?
Alyssa's like, I've got 8 inches, eh?
No, it's true. In America, we have like an 8-tiered system that like you got to get to the top, but you're gonna like make yourself up in the middle. But yeah, that's very true. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so, but that's another reason why people should travel more, because then you realize like there's so many weird social cues in this country that like you have to be aware of. And then you wonder like when people from other countries show up here and they're like, I don't even know where to start with you. I don't even know where to start. Like, how do you live like this? And English is already one of the hardest languages to learn because it's like 17 other ones combined into one. Like, it's nuts. What did Deanna say? I see you switched up your Instagram account. I see you, girl.
Oh my gosh, she's on both.
Learned so much from you both, sending good vibes, but logging out. Oh, thank you, Deanna. Thank you for joining in. And actually, so it's 7:40, so I always like to leave a little bit of time left over just to kind of talk about what you have coming up as well, because you, as we have now learned, are a woman of many talents, traits, and qualities. So talk about it. I want to hear about this poetry competition, and I want to hear about like what your thoughts are for moving forward with that.
So, poetry competition. This is my first one. I just posted my poem that I had everybody vote on yesterday. I had posted 3. Everybody picked. It was like very close between 2. So I posted it. Never did anything like that. I didn't even really write until like a couple months ago. And I was like, you know what? Let me just put it out there. Like, let me just do it. You know, like, whatever, be vulnerable. And it feels so good. I am, like, so encouraging people. And in the last poem that I posted, I wrote this thing because I'm just like, guys, like, if you feel like there's something that's like, screaming at you, do it. Because, like, fear is always going to be there. I read this book called Big Magic by the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
No way. I'm already starting. I'm just super into that already. Like, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. Big Magic?
It's Big Magic. And she says that fear is a part of creativity. So fear is always going to be with you, but you have to tell fear, like, no, boo. Like, you're in the passenger seat and I'm driving. So it's cool because I am so fearful to put my poems out. Like, it's like weird. Like, I'm talking about like love and like wanting love or feeling like a piece of shit. I don't know. And so, you know, doing that has just seriously opened up so many new realms. And I actually feel like it's led me here to you. Because I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to put my poetry out. And then it's encouraged me to just be myself on social media in general. And be like, whatever. We'll just see what comes of it. This is me being me. And so, like, I appreciate you so much because I'm just like, wow, this is, like, really a part of the process. And it just feels so, like, good, you know?
Thank you so much for saying that. That's, like, one of the best compliments you could ever give me, to be 1,000% honest. Because, like, again, part of our conversation before was about journeys and is about growth. And it's like, to even be told that I'm a part of somebody's journey is huge.
You are probably the biggest part yet. And I actually wanted to ask you, like, if I was going to tell somebody what you're doing, you know, because I'm obviously going to, like, talk to people at school tomorrow, my friends, like, oh, I got interviewed by Fresco. Mm-hmm. Because he's doing this, like, podcast that does what? Like, how would you answer that? Or what's your goal?
Before I answer that, I think it's so funny that you're asking me a question, because for a part of the interview, I was like, she'd be really good at this. Like, no, I think you'd be fantastic at this, to be, like, seriously. Yeah, it's probably the mug, though. It's definitely the mug.
100%.
Show up with the mug and be like, I'm ready for conversation and tea. With so Adrift started during quarantine, and it had a lot to do with trying to find a way out of this mental block that I think that the quarantine put us all in. So when I say, like, even in the title, like, Adrift, like, I felt like I was, like, you know, in the middle of the ocean, my ship had just collapsed, and I was just, like, floating there, and I was trying to find whatever guidance, whatever inspiration, whatever sort of spiritual healing I could find, because the outside world was just crumbling around me. You know, like, my business just went to a dead stop. You know, all of my events were canceled. People weren't getting married. You know, portraiture was out the window. So it was like, what do you do in that situation? And one thing that I learned was just don't stop. Whatever you do, just don't stop. So Adrift was a response to that. It was a response to this need that I felt to have conversations with people, to share wisdom, to continue this sort of trend of inspiration, and making sure that people had a place to find it. even though everywhere they looked, it was like the president this or politics that, or, you know, the virus is killing so many people. It's like, I didn't want to add fuel to that fire, you know, and even now I still sense this almost urgency that people have this need to like, to focus on the negative and not realizing that there's so much to be learned from this experience. And this may be one of the most valuable years that I have ever had personally, like in terms of growth, in terms of acceptance. So if I was to answer your question in a nutshell, Adrift is a place to find clarity, I would say. It's definitely that. From multiple and very different perspectives. You know?
Clarity on life?
Clarity on life, business, and spirit. Yeah. Adrift is a place to find clarity on life, business, and spirit, because there are some episodes that pertain to kind of business branding. Then there's other episodes that kind of focus on personal development. And even this episode is kind of like blending a lot of different things. I mean, talking about travel has led to a conversation about self-improvement, self-awareness. And it's also talked about some of your own goals that you've had as well. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to kind of explain something that I purposefully with intention didn't want it to have a boundary. You know, like the mind, the heart, the soul, spirit, branding, business, all of it is so infinite. And you can't look at it from just that perspective. Like everything is intertwined, all of it. You know, there's this thing that about the butterfly effect that I was reading about, and it made me think of it in a different way. So when you think about the butterfly effect, it's like something happens like all the way across the world, and it's a butterfly that just flaps its wings, and it has an effect. It causes like windstorms or something to that like effect on the other side of the planet. So I started thinking about that idea and realizing that this conversation that we're having, you know, even moments maybe where I might hold the door open for somebody or vice versa, those little tiny moments have effects on you. They're little ripples. They affect your sanity. They affect your well-being. They affect your sense of self-worth. You know, when somebody like even that holding the door open for you, even though that happens maybe once every 3 years for you, that one time when it happens, it makes you feel worthy, worthy to be alive, worthy to live, worthy to even hold space. And you don't even realize that it's doing that. So if that one little action can have such a profound effect, if only for a moment, I could only imagine what consistently having conversations with it, like with people, could do for others.
It's so true. Like, even if one person, sorry if I just cut you off.
No, you're great. I just went, boom. That's my...
I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, if one person takes one thing away, like, you made a difference.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, it's, like, honestly, so lame to say, but, like, it's an honor to be here. Because the fact that you are like inspired in whatever way by me, and I've had a lot of people reach out lately. They're like, I love seeing you blow up. Cool. Like, I love seeing you do what you love to do. Like, you know, it's just great. Like, keep doing it. And I'm just like, wow. Like, I want other people to feel this way too. So if, you know, I can relate to that. If these conversations are what you want people to hear so they feel good, like, that's amazing. You're just like pouring love like out of your heart, you know, and like out into the world, and you're like, here you go. And then it's like hitting people like me, and then I'll be like, here you go. And it just like goes everywhere, you know, just encouraging people to stay open, like stay like ready for like love and thoughts and open-mindedness, and just like, you know, just a lot of life stuff, because life can be fucking hard, dude.
Yo, real talk.
For real, like real difficult.
You know, no, and Lady Vista, who I always say it Lady Vista, but it's actually the STA's second time around. Lady V, Vivian, you are an absolute gem. And you asked this great question, like, how do I use my fear? Use it as a gift that pushes you. And I wanted to go back to that. I hadn't forgotten about you, because what I think a lot of us suffer from is like fear paralysis. When we feel this sense of fear, we think it means that we should stop. And fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means to be cautious. It's like, be aware that you're doing something that you may have not done before, and just be mindful so you can learn from that experience. And I feel like even like loving so openly, you know, even sharing like your story about like your dad, narcissism, you know, and my mom, and, you know, like I've talked about what was going on with her and my dad and all that fun stuff. I call it fun now. But like going on with all these things, it's like there's a very like freeing component that comes with opening yourself up to the world and being that transparent. But before that even happens, the first thing that you feel is fear. You feel fear. That's always the first thing that you fear and that you feel. And the next thing after that, once you reach over that plateau, is always something phenomenal. Even if it sucks, it's still phenomenal. But even if it's great, you would have never experienced it because the fear paralyzed you.
Yes.
You know, this series, like, what business does a photographer have, like, putting himself on camera and talking to random people about like random shit? You know what I mean? Like, there was no prerequisite for that.
Yeah.
And yet you're telling me that I've helped inspire you and validate, you know, your own experience, and other people have shared some really fantastic feedback about this. It's like, it's really nuts to me that it took quarantine, it took a virus, it took like all of these terrible things in sequence for me to get to this point where I was like, I want to share love with people. And to have literally everybody I've ever asked say yes is like mind-blowing to me. It's like astounding, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm a photographer. I mean, I have a degree in psychology, but like, you know, I'm not asking you how you feel. I'm not asking you about your day. You know, I want you to tell me something that I don't know. That's not what a therapist does. Like,
Right.
you know, it's a completely different field. So I'm honored. No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that I'm also honored that you would even share so much of not even just the travel, but also part of the reason why you needed to go on that trip. You know, like that's a huge thing to recognize, not only in your relationships, but in your own personal life. Because you said family is important to you. And it's like family is important because of so many factors. One of those being that family shapes us, you know, and it shapes us in so many different ways that we don't even recognize. In the same way,
all of us, like
yeah,
a whole thing.
All of it. All of it. You said before in our own personal conversation, you were like, people name us. Like, people give us a name.
That's crazy. We don't even get that choice, you know?
Yeah. It's like I go into this world, it's like, I'm this. It's like, you know, and like those people with like terrible names, like, I don't know, Hagrid, you know, like, I don't know why that was the first thing that came to mind, but like, imagine introducing yourself like, hi, my name's Hagrid. It's like, what about this guy, you know? And he's not even like big and burly. He's like this skinny dude that works in Silicon Valley, but his name's Hagrid. Like, you're not a Hagrid.
What always gets me is the name Dick. If a guy is like, hi, I'm Dick, I'm like, whoa, I've been single for too long. I'm just kidding. But like, I'm just like, damn, that really is your name.
Yeah. You go around every day, and that's, you know, this is a whole other conversation. But that's why I changed my name to Fresco. Not legally, but every time I meet somebody, oh, what's your name? It's Fresco. No, it's not. Not legally, but it's Fresco. You know what I mean? Like, it's my name socially. You know?
I love that. I really, really do love that. And you're making me consider, like, I know we talked about this, but like, Alyssa is cool. It's a great name. All Alyssas out there, shout out. But it doesn't feel necessarily like completely right with me. And people have always said, go by Sky, because that's my middle name. Go by Sky, go by Sky. And I'm like, can I just change my name to that? Like, halfway through my life? Like, can I do that? And then I'm like, I don't know if Sky really fits me either fully, completely. So it's something to think about, too, for anybody who watches this. Like, you could change your name to fit more of like your lifestyle or what you want. Like, say I really wanted to pursue being like this like cool like mysterious poet, like I could name myself like Draculina. Like, I could do that.
Ooh, now you're giving me ideas.
But that probably wouldn't be my vibe, but like, you know what I mean? People could just do that. I think if you live in an inspired, like creative sort of way with fear in the passenger seat and you're just like creating, doing podcasts, whatever it is that you do for art, maybe you will be inspired to change your name.
Maybe. Yeah. I didn't have to stop my photography. It was just something to keep, it was something to add on and to fill a void for the moment, but now it's also a part of me. You know what I mean? Like now I'm a photographer and you know what I mean? And so in keeping, just because we only have like 4 minutes left, but just, I guess, like a final thought on my end, and I'll try and be quick just in case you have a response.
Yeah.
Don't think that you have to just be one thing. You know what I mean? Like, even when I like introduce you, like, you know, this free-spirited traveler, you know what I mean? Like, that does not fully encompass you. You know, like your job doesn't fully encompass you. Your name doesn't fully encompass you because we forget that this body that we're in is a vessel. It's a vehicle. It's a Toyota Corolla. Sometimes we have a Jaguar, you know, it depends what you got, you know, and it's a vessel for us to inhabit. And what we really are is this infinite, beautiful, like thing that it has no shape, no form, but it can be anything. And so, like, you are not your name, you're not your title, you're not your job, you're not just a mom, you're not just a this. Like, you are so much, but it's your perception that allows you to either grow beyond that or not. And that's my final thought.
All I gotta say, love it. I'm feeling feelings, you know? Feels good.
Love it.
My final step.
Right? Your final sip. There we go. That, oh my God. That's the name of your podcast.
The final
Sky
sip.
Final Sip. Yeah.
Done. Action.
Awesome. So if you have nothing else to say, I'm sure actually there's plenty to say, but like if you, if there are no final remarks, 3, 2, 1.
I'm good. It's all day.
Well, I'd like to thank you once again so much for being on Adrift. I'd like to thank you for sharing so much of your experience and just continue to be yourself. And I'm so happy that we've rekindled this friendship. I'm so happy to see you in such goodness and such wholeness. And yeah, so this has been Adrift. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
Bye.